Okay, should we let people in? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let people in? Let people in?
Why? I'm not seeing the waiting room.
Oh, maybe you're not a co-host.
Maybe.
I do have her as a co-host. You may need to relog. I'm not sure. Regardless, as a co-host, though. We are live now, by the way.
Okay, let's mute ourselves and let people in. morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your punctuality. Welcome. We'll begin in just about a minute. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Teach PA's virtual mission to Harrisburg. If you are a school or student or community member, please be sure to include your school name on your Zoom listing. Can everybody hear me? Can I get some thumbs up? Fantastic. So welcome everyone to the Teach PA virtual mission to Harrisburg. I'm Ariel Frankston-Morris, and as the Executive Director of Teach PA, I couldn't be prouder to see you all today. No buses broke down on the way to Harrisburg like they did 2 years ago, and we won't be sitting in the blazing heat on the majestic steps of the Capitol. But God willing, we'll contend with all of that next year because it is worth it. Our advocacy matters today, and all of you, the community members, our synagogue rabbis, and most importantly, our students, your voice is what makes all the difference. So today we'll demonstrate our Hakarat HaTov. We'll show our gratitude to elected officials who have helped Jewish and non-public schools thrive here in Pennsylvania, and we will ask for continued support. We'll dive right in with our first legislative leader to address our group. In our communities, it's the relationships with local elected officials that really matter. The attention and consideration of leaders like Senator Jay Costa mean everything. A great friend to our Pittsburgh schools and our statewide community, and a champion of school and community safety, it is my pleasure to welcome Democratic leader Jay Costa.
Well, thank you very much, Aaron, for the opportunity to be with all of you today. And to everyone on the call, it's well over 50 some folks. Yeah, it's been kind of hard to fit all of you into our office here in Harrisburg. So this is a great way to be able to do it. Look forward as we go forward, though, to the opportunity to meet in person, to talk about some of the issues that are important to all of you and to our community in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County and across Pennsylvania. These are important opportunities to have conversations with elected leaders, policymakers, people who are going to make laws and regulations and the like that impact your lives. So your advocacy, understanding the process, understanding the issues in your advocacy in certain areas is really going to be helpful to all of us, helping to frame and form what needs to be done going forward. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. I thought what I'd talk a little bit about, if it's okay, would be just sort of a summary of where things are at with regard to our budget process. That's where things are at right now. There have been a number of issues that I dealt with earlier today. I just came upstairs from a Women's Health Caucus discussion about many of the measures moving through our state health committee. Dan Frankel, Representative Frankel was there with us and others, talking about how these measures are maybe not the most appropriate for Pennsylvania, but that's part of the dialogue and conversation. Earlier today, I did a Zoom call with the Secretary of Labor and Industry, and we did a press event talking about the workforce shortage in Pennsylvania, what's taking place along those lines, and some of the reasons behind it. There's issues that are behind folks not being able to go back to work or wanting to go back to work. Certainly issues, for example, like the situation with childcare, which is horrible right now in Pennsylvania. We have to take more steps to create more childcare. Talk about issues with respect to folks having hesitancy to wanting to go back into the workplace, particularly in those settings like the hospitality community, where they're still concerned about the nature of the virus and folks who are frequent in these entities. So those are some of the things that are taking place here in Harrisburg right now. But the big issue, for example, is the budget conversation. And we're working through that process. As some of you may know, Pennsylvania was the recipient of about $7.3 billion from the federal government, the American Rescue Plan, that will provide us with resources to manage our budget, making investments as we go forward. Our focus is, our caucus as Democratic leader, I lead our caucus policies and directives, and ours is clearly focused on making investments in education. So we're working closely with Governor Wolf along those lines to want to put resources into education as we go forward, and all levels of education. You know, it's just not K to 12. It's early learning. It's the 0 to 3, the toddlers, that we need to put resources in. The pre-K and the kindergarten and up to first grade, making sure we have adequate resources and adequate slots for kids to get access to learning at an earlier age as best we can. And certainly childcare ties into that as well. K to 12 and even higher ed, and even the workforce type of programs that we have in Pennsylvania, career and technical educations, that I know is a major issue in the city of Pittsburgh and something we support strongly as well. That leads folks to a possible career going forward, so they have a career, but also have the opportunity, if they choose, to be able to get a college degree in that space as well. So we have $7.3 billion to spend. We're not sure how we're going to do it yet. We're looking for input. We've taken input from a lot of groups. And but that's the focus that we're going to talk about. But we also divide it into 3 categories: people, making investments in people, making investments in projects, and making investments in public safety and public health. Those are the broad categories that we're focusing on the distribution of these dollars, and hopefully we'll be able to deal with them going forward. We got to get our support from our Republican colleagues to achieve this. So right now we are engaging in our own internal advocacy with the Republicans on the other side of the aisle and with the governor's office to make the case that our investments that we want to make spending these resources, most importantly, are needed now and are needed by individuals who are suffering as we continue to go through and deal with the experiences from the pandemic. So when we talk about investing in people, we're talking about various programs to make sure that resources are available, making sure that small businesses survive or be able to grow, come out of this, making sure they have the resources to create the appropriate setting, the PPE, making sure that the employees are well protected and their customer base as well. Public health, we're talking about making sure that there are programs through health departments across Pennsylvania and through the Department of Human Services, making sure we have access to mental health programs, for example, which is a major issue going forward that's sort of flying under the radar right now. And we have to do more to be able to let folks acknowledge and recognize that we have to make these investments. And it's across all sectors, and it's across all age groups that we have to talk about those type of issues. Having public health facilities and continuing to work hard, providing resources to our local community groups to make sure that that we are dealing with vaccine hesitancy, which is a major issue in Pennsylvania. We're striving to get to 70%, and our progress has slowed down some, but we're hoping to be able to get there sooner. So we have to do more to convince folks and to convey to folks that the vaccine's safe and it's appropriate not only for themselves, but folks going forward. And then the last is projects. You know, we have a number of areas where we want to get people back to work. So we're focusing on an economic development process. And we believe that putting resources into the infrastructure of Pennsylvania is going to be important. Our roads, our bridges, our highways, our airports, our waterways, and also looking at the broadband situation. We know that we have to do more deployment of broadband across Pennsylvania, but we also need to do more with respect to even our urban settings that where broadband deployment is there, but folks' ability to access it or afford access to be able to learn how to do, for example, distance learning and the like, are something that we need to take a look at. We're dealing with this pandemic. It's coming to a close, I hope, in the coming months. And we're working with our Republican colleagues to fashion a continuation of some of the mitigation orders that are in place, which come to an end on May 31st, but also some of the other things that are permitted by law now, given the declaration that otherwise we were not able to do during the course of the year. For example, telemedicine, which is a big issue that we're dealing with. We're also dealing in the budget process with issue regarding funding for the school safety program. We've worked hard on that program for a number of years now. We were happy to create it when we did with $60 million. But every year we have to have a conversation and negotiation to put that money back into the budget. The governor usually starts with a $15 million request. And then the legislature, I work with my colleague, the other leaders, the three other leaders in the General Assembly here to advocate for adding $45 million more to our budget process. We're going to continue to be able to do that. And that money is really broken down into two categories. One is basically your traditional school safety issues. And in that realm, it's about $47 million that we use for that purpose. And we distribute it to most every school district in different, with a baseline amount. But other school districts that come to the school safety committee and make an argument or case as to why they have a particular program that they want to see going forward. And there's some are about related to hardening of a school, maybe some barriers, metal detectors around the doors, maybe there are bars on the windows or other types of things of that nature. While that's important, I'm proud to tell you that the legislation I put into that mix relates to school counseling and school counselors and psychiatrists and psychologists into the school districts. So using those proceeds to be able to have school districts hire these professionals to come into the schools and work with the kids, work with the children. And again, at all age groups, not just simply starting at the high school level, for example. So a lot of the school districts, over half, I believe, of the school districts, when they request money for the schools from the school safety program, are using it for that particular purpose. So that's working out and it's been effective. The other $12.5 million is utilized through community violence programs to take steps to create programs that create crime prevention programs in the community. That in some instances are school districts partnering with community organizations that work well. For example, in my area where I live in Forest Hills, Woodland Hills School District partnered with Pittsburgh Action Against Rape to deal with issues about violence in the schools and understanding the nuances of how to interact with individuals of different sexes and the like. So those are some of the dollars that Pittsburgh Action Against Rape put into play that were very, very effective. And it was in conjunction with the school district to bring those programs into the school district, into the school buildings, to have those conversations with a lot of folks that I think have been beneficial. I'm optimistic that we are going to make investments in the broader education line items that'll drive more money into our school districts. At the same time, we will also be making investments of $60 million back into the school safety program as well. And finally, one program that Representative Franco and I have put into our state budget the last 2 years, and we're continuing to work with, creates a $5 million pot of money grant program for community groups and organizations that have been subject to different types of violence as it relates to organizations that are deemed to be victims of discrimination or anti-hate activities. There's the FBI sets a group of organizations and entities in race and religion and the like that define who those organizations might be. I'm proud to tell you that the $5 million the last couple of years has gone out. And in particular, of the $10 million that's gone out, I would happy to tell you that probably about $3 to $4 million of that, if not more, has made its way into the Pittsburgh area, particularly into our Jewish community, to protect folks that are taking place. And as we see going on again today, the conversation about hate crimes continues. Representative Franco and I are going to be doing a meeting later today. Next week, we're going to do a press event to call upon our colleagues in the legislature to pass these hate crime measures. They need to be passed. They need to be talked about. And we've been talking about this for about 4 years now. And I think that that's unfortunate we can't get these bills moving, but we're going to continue to fight for them. But the resources that we brought to the table have allowed us the opportunity to be able to drive those dollars out to allow for protection of the different, whether it be a synagogue, whether it be a faith-based organization that is subject to hate crimes and in that category, and other types of ways in which they can use those resources. We're excited that it's unfortunate we have to provide resources for this purpose, but I'm very pleased that we've recognized it here in the General Assembly, and we'll continue to be able to do so and use those resources along those lines. So I rambled on quite a bit. I'd like to hear what you guys all have to say, or any questions you might have of me about the work that I'm doing, or things or issues that are taking place in the Pittsburgh, Allegheny County area or across the region.
Senator, good morning. This is Dave Bonzik with Cozen O'Connor. Thank you again for the opportunity, your presence here, the opportunity to chat with you. Your support of all of the programs you previously mentioned, school safety, the nonprofit security grants, absolutely vital to the Jewish community. And certainly we thank you and appreciate your support. You mentioned relative to the pandemic response, the additional funding for school counselors and various other programs that obviously exposed a critical need over the past 14, 15 months. One area that I know the Jewish day schools in particular, but non-public schools in general are very interested in is school nurse programs. In most non-public schools don't have a full-time nurse. They either have a part-time nurse or they become on loan from the local school district. So that is something certainly that this group is looking at going forward in terms of funding process and the availability of school nurses on a more frequent, if not a daily basis for our non-public schools. It obviously the need was exposed vis-a-vis COVID. The cost for many non-public schools simply is something that they can't afford. And so as you deliberate with your colleagues in the Republican caucus and in the House on both the Democrat and Republican side, that is something definitely that I think we should be looking at as something for consideration to add to your package of school counselors and other types of mental health services being provided.
There you go. Thank you very much. No, I agree. And I think that's a great point you raised. And I think, quite frankly, school nurses are an extension of the other professionals I talked about in terms of communicating and having a relationship with the students that are dealing with issues along those lines. One of the things that we talked about is expanding the school safety program to allow for nurse coverage. I believe it may be there already. I have to go back and double check, but there was some conversation. But as we drive out these pandemic dollars or the American Relief Act dollars, that's an area in terms of the public health space that we consider being something we should be looking at doing and providing our school districts along those lines. Or even if it relates to the dollars and making their way from the federal government to the districts, encourage them to be able to put those resources aside, at least at the district level, the public side, but also on the non-public side, we have to take steps to address that and find a pot of money to be able to allow that to happen. So I totally agree. It's a worthwhile investment, and it's this continuation of trying to communicate with professionals, health professionals in the school buildings to work with our kids as they go through crisis. And as I mentioned earlier, this whole pandemic is in the mental health space. Things are going to, we have to be thoughtful in this space, whether it be community mental health programs or mental health programs in our collective school districts or in the non-public sector. We need to do more in that space. I totally agree.
Thank you. And if I could just add one more question, not for me to dominate the discussion.
That's all right.
Obviously, a significant issue to non-public schools and the Jewish day schools in general is the EITC program and the OSTC program. I know there's some concern addressed or expressed by the governor as well as some members of your caucus about the accountability of the program, the percentage of dollars that go to administrative costs versus actually funding scholarships. One of the things that we have discussed as Teach PA is the potential for organizing an advisory committee. Right now, there is no EITC or OSTC advisory committee that can be the go-to source for information, to bounce policy ideas off of, to bounce concerns off of, those kinds of things. I think that it seemed to work particularly well with the COVID task force, with all four caucuses, the administration, other entities being represented, something akin to that, where if there are concerns with the EITC and OSTC program, that those issues can be brought before the advisory committee, can be made up of schools, scholarship committees, organizations, administrators, whatever it may need to be, to make sure that there's a sounding board for that, and those concepts or concerns are maybe vetted before they become full-blown policy initiatives, and really looking at how do we get to the best possible outcome for everybody.
That's a great suggestion. I would say to you that the vaccine task force the governor put together has performed very well. I think it may be a model as we go forward, as we continue down the path with regard to the continuation of emergency declarations and what conditions would be attached. I expect that we'll have a few more of these 21-day extensions. But what's important about that is how we negotiate them and what conditions and what situations are going to be permissible and not permissible going forward. And that model has been raised as a way in which we can do that, utilizing the task force model. In this setting, I think it makes a lot of sense as well. Been long been a supporter of the EITC program and will continue to do so. And almost annually, we increase it by some number. There's a large push for a very significant number of EITC this year. But the more money that goes into the program comes the greater need or greater desire to have some more accountability with respect to some of the things that you talked about, for example, on the administrative side. So I think that but having a group of folks to bounce off ideas, concerns, to help maybe have some consistency across the board in terms of how the organizations, the scholarship organizations are working and the like, I think would be very helpful. And I think, so I like that idea that you're proposing here, and I will take a look at that going forward. Do you know whether or not any other states have done this? Where they have the ITC advisory board or what?
We'll get back to you on that.
Okay, because I know, in Pittsburgh, I will tell you that the unofficial advisory group has been, I think, Mr. Shapira and Bishop Zubik and maybe one or two other folks who have been involved in our region as the major players in that space, and rightfully so. So they've sort of served, I guess, as the ad hoc advisory group. But at the end of the day, I think something on a more permanent statewide advisory group, I think would be something that makes a lot of sense.
Senator Costa, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Great.
It's very clear that there's a lot going on in Harrisburg, and we really can't wait to see you hopefully next year, and hopefully in your schools in the district as soon as it's safe. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to come visit once things settle, maybe in the fall, do some more visits. I've been to some of the schools already in the past and looking forward to visits again. So thanks, guys, for having me. Thanks for what you're doing. That's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so to our whole group, I just want to share with everybody, you just witnessed a little bit of what it looks like to advocate and to lobby and share your ideas and ask questions. So Alex, we can go to the intro.
You've been seeing us a lot lately. In your school emails, at your free lunch sites, in your local newspapers, and even before the pandemic, in the halls of your state capitol, visiting your classrooms with politicians, the list goes on. But I bet you want to know more about what we do and who we are.
Since 2013, Teach Coalition has delivered close to $1 billion in government funding to Jewish schools in states such as New York, New Jersey, Florida, Pennsylvania, California, and Maryland. Our Teach state teams fight for government funding for historic programs, including record funding for school security, first of its kind STEM funding, funding for nursing aid, funding for tax credits, funding for remedial services, important funding that our K through 12 students need in our states. And these states represent 90% of the Jewish day school world in America.
I remember before the state funding where there was a tremendous pressure every 2 weeks to make payroll. Thanks to Teach Florida, we now have a little bit of breathing room.
Having my kids in a Jewish school, coming home every day, light up, tell me about the Shabbat and the Chagim, and me knowing also that they get the academics, general studies that we want, it's amazing.
This past year, EULA girls received the California Non-for-Profit Security Grant, and that will have a huge impact on our school's security moving forward.
It's not about supporting a religious or a public education system. You must support both to have either.
When the pandemic started, we took everything we learned and put it to work to help our schools and families receive the services and funds necessary to meet the challenges of the pandemic.
It would have been almost impossible for us to function without their contacts and their lines of communication.
Certainly in smaller communities where there are fewer Jewish day schools, et cetera, we are very much an afterthought in the eyes of the local municipal governments, state governments, Department of Ed, and Teach PA has played a very, very important role in, kind of shouting and reminding them that there are private schools who are in need of support as well.
We are working around the clock, fighting for kosher meals.
Here's our great CBS crew, putting the lunches together for all children who need.
We're making sure that people of the 5 towns have food for their families. 5 food groups for lunch and 3 food groups for breakfast.
For access to technology, and are providing guidance to schools to navigate the many forms and relief funding that has been out there on a state and federal level. There's still so much more to do.
The one thing that this pandemic reinforced for us is that schools of tomorrow are going to look really different from schools of yesterday and today for so many reasons. We count on Teach Coalition so often, and we will continue to do so as we move into the future.
51% of jobs that exist today could be automated tomorrow. That means that we have to think about how we're teaching our students. We have to think about the skills that we're teaching them.
Ensuring that every student has the skills they need to pursue their dreams also means ensuring that they have the tools they need for a world-class education. I commend TeachNJ for preventing us in public office from losing sight of that fact.
It's so hard to be connected to your district. When you get to walk into a school and see all your efforts come to fruition, it's beautiful.
We need your help to continue to fight for our schools and families, and to make sure that every child has access to a strong, secure Jewish education.
What we've seen since the 2016 election is that the power to move mountains is with the people. It is literally about all of you.
You don't have to do everything, but everyone can do something.
We are grateful to the Orthodox Union leadership for support of Jewish education in Pennsylvania. Please welcome Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union, Rabbi Moshe Hauer.
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be on with all of you, with the leadership of the Teach Coalition, with the leadership of many, many day schools, Jewish day schools, and private schools throughout Pennsylvania, and with the students, with the hundreds, with the thousands of students joined together here today. And of course, we're grateful to our legislators who are here to hear our voice, to hear our collective voice. What this meeting is about today, what this Advocacy Day is about, is perhaps the central story of American Jewish life. This story, which is being played out today in this meeting, is the story of a community that has dedicated itself at incredible personal cost to bring an education to their families that aligns with their values. The central value that each of us has, and I address myself to the students who are here today, the commitment that you and your families have made to pursue your education in a Torah environment, an education that comes not with a background of your values, but with your values and your commitment to Torah and to Jewish life in the foreground, at the very same time as you and your families are committed to an education for excellence, to be able to be significant, productive members of your communities, to enter every profession that is open and available, to lead your communities, to represent your communities broadly throughout. This is the story of the American Jewish community and its commitment to its private school education, to strive for excellence in their commitment to their religious life and their values, and to strive for excellence in their secular education. We are here today to express ourselves in gratitude and in hope to the legislators and the leaders of Pennsylvania, that they recognize the investment that our community makes in this, that you continue your support for our education. We're doing our part. We're carrying our weight in such a significant way. We need your help, and we appreciate the help and support that government has given for this commitment to education, for which we are equal and together with all of the citizens of Pennsylvania, and for your support of this effort and this dedication on behalf of our community. It's a great story. This story of education, which we are advocating for and presenting here today, it's a great story. It's a story which continues to bring great benefit to our community, to the state of Pennsylvania, to the United States of America, and to the world. The stars that you will be introduced to in a moment, our students, our Jewish students, will be continuing to make their impact for all of us, for the entire community, for the entire country, for decades to come. Thank you. Thank you for your partnership, for your support, and for being here today.
Thank you, Rabbi Hauer. It's really exciting to see so many students and schools here today and engaged in our work. The amazing accomplishments of Teach PA could not have happened without your voices. I want to make sure you know about the remarkable programs and funding that together we have delivered to our schools. This year, Pennsylvania non-public schools received more than $350 million. Each and every one of our schools accesses scholarships through EITC and OSTC, our scholarship tax credit programs to make Jewish education affordable for our families. As I've mentioned, none of our collective successes could have been accomplished without the elected officials who champion EITC, school safety, who have made sure our buses still ran this year while schools were in person, and the continuously needed COVID relief measures. Without Senator Dave Argall, our school safety goals would not have been achieved. A firm supporter of EITC and of the future of education in Pennsylvania, I am so proud to introduce Senator Dave Argall, State Government Committee Chair.
There we go. I've hit the magic button. Greetings. Obviously, I'm not really in the attic of the Capitol, although it looks like I am. The district that I represent is mostly a lot of little towns in Schuylkill County and in the farming regions and suburban areas north, east, and west of Reading in Berks County. I've really first started working with your organization a few years ago when I was asked by the majority leader to conduct 18 public hearings on the school safety issue. This is obviously, because of some just terrible tragedies, an issue that we spend a lot more time debating in Harrisburg than we did when I was a younger state representative. And the one key question that kept coming through again and again and again was, well, what about the non-public schools? The needs there are just as great as in the public schools. We listened, we learned, and we included non-public schools for the first time in the budget for school safety a couple of years ago. And so I think that was a real success story. The same is true for me in school choice issues in EITC. I think that we should do whatever we can to make sure that we are not just protecting our school children, we're helping them to get educated to meet their needs. And every student is going to have different wants and desires. Every family is going to have different goals, but we ought to do what we can for all 13 million Pennsylvanians, whether it's in a city, a suburb, a farm, a town, and whether it's a public school or not public school. It ought not to depend on where you live and what your zip code is. That's a principle that I've stuck with for a long time. And I'm just glad to see that we've made some pretty serious success stories in this Capitol building by working together with you.
Okay, Senator Argall, we're so grateful. I don't think that you visited one of our schools yet, but hopefully in a few months when it's safer, we'll welcome you to one of our schools, give you the real fanfare that you deserve. So thank you so much for joining us here today. And we know you have a lot on your plate and will be really busy over the next month.
All right, thank you very much for including me.
Thank you. We are here to show our elected officials that we care and appreciate their support. We will now give some lobbying tips and then review some of our points.
Teach was created in order to establish better, safer, more affordable Jewish education. Want to help us make a difference? If you are seeking political change, you must learn how to lobby effectively. Before the meeting, prepare. Read the biography of the elected official and familiarize yourself with their district. Understand the talking points and discuss the lobbying agenda with your group in advance of the meeting. Appoint a group leader. At the meeting, they will introduce your team and explain your goal. You may meet with staff. That's okay. This is often the case during budget season. They will convey your meeting to the elected official and are a great point of contact to have in the office. At the meeting, be on time. This is important. It shows you respect the busy schedule of the elected official. Stay on message. Don't lose sight of your mission. Government funding for non-public schools, or the message will get diluted. Be confident, humble, and concise. Be confident in your right to lobby. If you don't know the answer to any questions you're asked, tell them you'll find out and get back to them. After the meeting, say thank you. Thank them for their past support, for taking the meeting, and for taking the time to meet with you today. Follow up. Make sure to send a thank you note after your meeting. Consider meeting them back in their district or inviting them to your school or synagogue. Your meetings today will make a difference for your schools. Happy lobbying.
At this point, would everybody who has not included your group name or your school name, please add that to your name, to your Zoom name. What you can do is hover over your name in the participants list and rename, including your group or your school. And that is especially for students who are not in your classroom. And if you're on a different device, please make sure to do that so you can land in the correct breakout room with your legislator. At this point, we're going to do a quick contest. If anybody caught it in your packets, there was a mistake. We'll put up the page that has the mistake, and if you can be the first to identify it and email an email that I will share in one moment, your class will get Rita's sponsored by Teach PA. So if we'll zoom in on this page that says Harrisburg at a glance, find the mistake and email it to klymanr@teachcoalition.org. That's KLYMANR@teachcoalition.org. So let's zoom in on that and we'll see. Yes, thank you, Rini, for posting that in the chat. And let's see who can find it. Email Rini with the correct answer and your group will get free Ritas. If you're a community member, if you are not a school student, you can appoint the school that will get the free Ritas. So everybody, let's hop to it. We'll give 1 minute to figure this out and we'll see if we have a winner. If you found it, please email klymanr@teachcoalition.org. And Rini, you can then unmute yourself and announce our winner. I think a group has already found it.
Still waiting on getting an email.
This is in real time, folks. Let's see who wants who wants Rita's the most.
All right, refreshing right now. Nothing yet. Again, please don't. I know my name is a little bit confusing. KLYMANR@teachcoalition.org. I'm waiting for your inbox.
Ariel, am I disqualified?
Dave, you are certainly disqualified. I see Jewish Day School of the Lehigh Valley scurrying around. They may have gotten it. I also think that, let's see, Community Day School, do we have it? Kohelet Yeshiva, do we have anything? Do we see it? I see some folks looking at their packets. We'll give one more minute. Otherwise, the whole Teach Coalition team will get Rita sponsored by our PA operation. Rini, anything yet?
Nothing yet. I keep refreshing.
Oh, Silver Academy in the chat. Let's see.
Oh, I got yours. Let's see. Did you get it?
Okay. We may have a community member who found it. If anyone posted in the chat, otherwise we have a community member who has found it.
I don't see anything in the chat, but you know what? Let's try to see if we could pick on someone to come up with an answer.
Okay, I think Jewish Day School of the Lehigh Valley, unmute yourselves. Can we let them be unmuted? They can share the answer.
Okay, go ahead. Where are you? Okay, ready? Here we go. So in the bottom one, it says there's only one independent, but in the picture there's only two. I mean, there is two.
Okay. That's a mistake. Great, that's one. Let's see, is there another mistake? Is there another mistake? I think that.
I got two email. So is Abrams Online says it says one independent in the Senate, but there are two dots.
Good, same answer. Good job. Great job. Let's see. I think we have
members in Senate.
Let's see. Is there anyone who has a different answer than the independents? Anything else?
I have Sivan saying that there are 100 members in Senate.
Okay, let's see. I think that this means that we're gonna have two community members who might have to duke it out. Yoni Jacobson and David Daniel have both suggested the correct answer. Can we please unmute Yoni? And Yoni can share what the correct answer is. Yonina Bentime. Alex, can we unmute her?
Oh, there we go. That the Senate has a 6-year term.
Is that correct? Dave Bonsick, is that correct?
That is correct for United States senators.
Right. That was nice. That was a nice try. So that's what we just learned in the U.S. Senate. It's a 6-year term.
Oh, sorry, 4-year term.
Oh, good job. Okay, good job. So Yoni, would you like to nominate which school group you will choose to get the free Ritas?
Can't all of Balakin or Pennsylvania get it, or Philadelphia or something? I don't like to choose.
We can make that happen. We can definitely make that happen. Good job, Yoni. Thank you so much for your civics prowess. Good job. So at this point, we're soon going to hop into our lobbying meetings. As a reminder, be sure to introduce yourself, your school, and your community. They genuinely want to know about you, how government funding helps your school, explain your goal and why you're here to meet with them. Don't forget about scholarships that students at each and every one of our schools receive through EITC and OSTC. You may meet with staff, and that's wonderful. The staff member will convey your meeting to the elected official and is a very important person for you to know. Be sure to stay on message. Don't lose sight of our mission, support for schools like yours. You should also share stories. The more personal, the better. If you don't know the answers to any questions that come up, just let them know that you will get back to them with an answer. And at the end of the meeting, thank the elected official or the staff. We will share with you their contact information so you can email them. Thank you as well. And most importantly, have fun, learn how to lead. This should be a great start to your advocacy for many years ahead. This is an amazing opportunity to advocate for change that will impact your life and your community. So at this point, we will open the breakout rooms. Many of you will automatically be placed into your breakout room. If not, give us a few minutes, we'll get you into the right room and you'll wait there for your elected official. If your elected official doesn't come within the next 5-10 minutes, you can write to us in the chat and we'll troubleshoot that. So here we go, let's start our lobbying.